Hey guys, how you doing? So these past few days there's been one movie I haven't been able to get out of my head, and that movie is Matt Reeves' The Batman. I think it's safe to say that The Batman is easily one of the best Batman movies ever created, one of the best comic book movies ever created, and also possibly the best movie of 2022. With a budget of $185 million, as opposed to Marvel's Thor Love and Thunder at $250 million, The Batman stands its ground with breathtaking quality and passion behind the camera. I personally think that The Batman has single-handedly beat all Marvel projects in the past few years. The Batman is one of the seemingly rare comic book films nowadays where you can truly feel the passion in front of and behind the camera, with director Matt Reeves bringing together a dream team with Greg Fraser as cinematographer, Michael Giacchino as composer, along with names like Robert Pattinson, Paul Dano, Jeffrey Wright, and Zoe Kravitz. But as I said before, these past few days, I cannot stop thinking about this movie and everything it achieved. Whether it was the emotional moments, the beautiful cinematography, or its intricately detailed story, it always left me in awe. So while we're a few years away from the Batman sequel, as it takes a lot of carefully crafted work to complete, I still want to share some of the sequel ideas that I've been thinking about ever since the film even came out. So Warner Bros., if you're seeing this, please steal my ideas. To start us out and give you guys an idea of where I'll be going with this pitch, the title for this Batman sequel would be The Batman, Heart of Ice. The setting for this film would take place just a few months after the end of the previous film, during the holiday season and wintertime. The city is still flooded after the actions of the Riddler, but now, because it is wintertime, the flooded Gotham has started to turn into a great freeze, turning all the water into ice. I've always wanted to see a Gotham City set during winter as the snow falls, and I think this could be a perfect opportunity to do that. I imagine the dramatic church bells ringing as Batman stands upon a snow-covered rooftop. And because the city streets are mostly frozen, I think it could also give the opportunity to introduce some of the iconic GCPD blimps as seen in the animated series, as well as give us the Batwing for the first time, as driving on the streets could prove dangerous. Of course, the setting will be perfect for a character like Mr. Freeze. The title of Heart of Ice would of course refer to none other than Mr. Freeze. While at first the idea of Mr. Freeze might seem a little too fantastical for this grounded take on the Batman universe, I believe there is a way to fit him in perfectly and for him to become a truly intriguing villain. While a lot of people really want the Court of Owls as the next villains, I for one believe that it's much too soon for them, and that having another Batman movie be a deconstruction of the city's corrupt elected officials could be repetitive if done so soon. So I think a high-profile villain in Batman's rogues gallery like Mr. Freeze, who we haven't seen on the big screen in decades, is an amazing choice. In Paul Dini's excellent Batman the Animated Series episode titled Heart of Ice, a new origin was crafted for the character of Victor Freeze, and it's one that is surprisingly very emotional. Matt Reeves has shared interest in bringing a grounded version of Mr. Freeze into his Batman universe, as well as Robert Pattinson stating that they're exploring ways to bring in more fantastical villains. I believe Mr. Freeze is a villain that could open the door for many more to come. Mr. Freeze is actually a very tragic character, in that he's motivated by trying to save his wife Nora from a deadly disease. Freeze makes the choice to cryo-freeze her to slow down her death for time to find a cure. However, GothCorp billionaire industrialist Ferris Boyle secretly has Freeze's project defunded and tries to pull the plug on Nora Freeze, causing Victor Freeze to pursue revenge. With the Batman focusing so much on the corruption of Gotham City, I think this could also be a great next entry point into showcasing some of the corruption of Gotham's higher-ups at a similar status to Bruce Wayne himself, while also testing Bruce Wayne's integrity and showing how Bruce Wayne fits into this world. That could cause a lot of really interesting tension and growth for Bruce. Mr. Freeze wanting revenge would then lead to him hiring the Penguin, whose backstory we would have seen in his own HBO spin-off series coming soon. Now we're met with the Penguin who was in full power of the criminal underworld. Freeze would hire the Penguin and his forces to take down GothCorp and kidnap Ferris Boyle in exchange for GothCorp weapons, and Freeze would ask for Penguin's help in kidnapping Boyle. I believe this movie could also have a lot of detective angles as well, where Batman begins to investigate these frozen crimes and slowly learns more about the dirty business that GothCorp is really up to. In terms of the look of Mr. Freeze, there could be a lot of inspiration from old-fashioned scuba suits, and even other grounded suits of armor. After doing a bit of research myself into things like actual frostbitten victims, there's one thing that they share in common, and is that their skin slowly starts to turn into a pure black color. So I believe visually it could be really cool to see Mr. Freeze with a kind of grounded version of that, where he's kind of frostbitten, but also infused of course with the iconic blue coloring as well. I truly believe Mr. Freeze could be one of the most interesting and emotional characters ever brought to the screen for Batman. Mr. Freeze is someone who cares so deeply for the life of his loved ones, and I think that could contrast so well with the Batman and Bruce Wayne, a character who does this in the first place to avenge his parents' death. To see that kind of conflict and tension between Mr. Freeze and Batman about saving the ones they love could be extremely interesting. I believe Mr. Freeze could be just as compelling, if not more, than Dr. Octopus and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, in that they were both scientists whose motivation and love caused them to go to places they never thought they would be able to go, and turn them into their darkest selves. Throughout the Batman, we see a very different Bruce Wayne, one who is much more guarded and hidden, and one who is much more emotional than previous Bruce Waynes we have seen before. Throughout the first installment, Bruce Wayne has definitely grown with his own character arc, and I believe the next step in his evolution, throughout this possible trilogy, would be to see him grow into the billionaire playboy we usually know him to be.
I like those shoes.
Picking up from the Batman, Gotham is a much different place than before. At the end of the film, we see Mayor-elect Bella Real state that Gotham needs to put trust in the city's officials, and I believe that Bruce Wayne will be one to step up and show who he really is by helping the city, not only as the Batman. One of mine and many others' initial gripes about the Batman was how Bruce Wayne didn't necessarily feel like the Bruce Wayne we all know and love. However, thinking about it in retrospect, I think it was a brilliant idea by Matt Reeves to slowly evolve his character throughout the trilogy, instead of already having him be in that place. By having him be a more prominent figure in the spotlight, we could also introduce a new side of Gotham by showing some of Bruce's fellow billionaire friends like Ferris Boyle of GothCorp. As for Batman himself, while we would of course still see him instilling fear in criminals, we would continue to see him with the more hopeful side that was shown towards the end of the Batman, when he learned that vengeance is not the only way. He learned that bringing hope to the city is one way that he can truly bring change to Gotham, bringing us to more of a Batman we're accustomed to. On a visual side, I think it could be super interesting to see Batman get a few upgrades and simplify his suit to signify his change throughout his Gotham experiment. Matt Reeves has stated that his suit will be going through evolutions, and after the damage he took at the end of the first movie, some upgrades into a more traditional suit could and should very well happen. Personally, I think we still maintain his beautiful leather cowl. The way its glossiness shines when it's wet is so awesome. I would remove his collar piece, which I'm not the biggest fan of, and I would also simplify some of the armor to make it look more like a traditional Batman suit. Because I want this movie to be set in the icy tundra of Gotham, I think it would be really cool to see Batman with a full-on silver emblem, which would be super unique to this movie and something we've never seen before. And finally, I think with the winter setting, it could be a great time to introduce a blue Batsuit, something we haven't seen on screen since the Adam West days. Now, while the storyline of this page is very simple, I believe that this concept of adding Mr. Freeze into the Batman universe and opening a door to the more fantastical side of this universe, as well as adding some great development for the character of Bruce Wayne, would allow for this sequel to be truly great and one of the most compelling Batman films to date. By the end of the film, it could show us how one man went too far in trying to protect the one he loved, and became the worst version of himself, while also showcasing how we can truly protect the memory of the ones we love by making the right choices. There's a reason this film would be called Heart of Ice, because this film would be a story about love. It would show that no matter how cold and bleak the world can look, and how frozen and cynical you can become, that you can always choose the selfless path, and truly believe in that love. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you guys would want to see in a Batman sequel. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Before you leave, if you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button, and if you want to see more videos like this in the future, click that subscribe button as well. I'll see you guys in the next vid. Sushi out.